Shalom is real quick video giving all praises to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai Bashim Rakakadash Barakatah Yahweh Barakatah Yahushai Dawanas to the apostles, elder bishops, the great millstone, most salutation to the brothers teaching word for the hopeful elect, soon to be the elect most high will, to the hopeful extended elect Shalom blessings. I'm gonna call this a lot of fathers and young fathers need that Joe Jackson kit, you know. Me and Bond was joking earlier about it. Comes with 5 belts, shot of liquor, and a cigar. I'm just being humorous because we don't smoke cigars, and we're not drunkards. But all the 2/3 youngsters out there, that's so-called ruling the world, whatever, and I'm being humorous about that because we know who rules the world. But everybody was talking about, they paint the so-called black man, the worst man in the world, pretty much, a soft-ass America and shit, displayed him in the movie as, a horrible guy, and I think, my father, he wasn't that, he wasn't as austere as Joseph Jackson, but his voice was authoritative, more authoritative, I would say, and he was more strict. That's coming just, saying personally. I mean, we couldn't like eat cereal and we had to pronounce the words right, we get punched if we don't speak up. And this ain't no pity thing, you know what I'm saying? Because, some fathers are a little bit hard on their children. And I feel like a lot of times it's for a reason, a good reason. But you can, break the spirit of your child if you're not careful. So you got to be, it's a balance to that. That's why you're supposed to have knowledge, wisdom, understanding. My pops, he was an educated man. Of course, he wasn't in the truth, though, and he didn't, he believed in the Bible and believed in God, but not the way we do. But he was real strict, and my uncle. So, if I wasn't getting whooped by my pops, I'd get whooped. And not only that, this is the 70s, man. Into the 80s, all the parents were strict. For the most part, black people coming out of oppression, so whatever. Your teachers were strict. I remember, teachers saying, "Hey, I'm your mother when you're here," and they had the paddle in school. A lot of some schools they still have that. And then your auntie will whoop your ass. Your mother will whoop your ass. She had a strong hand back then, and she enough strength to whoop. Of course, he had 9 children, so, but, I had 2 brothers right under me and then a sister 5 years older than me. But, and I was the oldest son, so I was like, a lot of times, my sister was out doing her thing and I had to watch my brothers like, almost like they were my own children, but it was all disciplinary. It was, it's all discipline, man. And I'll jump at the voice, jump at his voice sometime, or know when he's getting off and be kind of nervous because he's going to go home. I don't know what the hell he's going, he was the type that was hard on education and military, so he either one of those, if hold on. So he was pushing and pushing, like long talks, and had to learn this. And I was like, hey man, inside I was like, I just want to play. So I ain't no pity party. when I hear about these stories, not even for me. So, you know, and a lot of families in Jake family, it could be better, you know. Um, it's always a better way to do things. But of course, this soft ass America, they gonna paint it like abuse, and he didn't love his kids like they do a lot of times. And these women, they look at the man the same way. If somebody get in the way of your desires, which you know, I could see that. Like, yeah, if you want to do something, you know, if they get in the way of it, you think they hate you. Or when and when you're a kid, you're not gonna be able to do everything you want. You know, it's like I said, you're gonna be told a lot no than yes when you're a kid. All the commandments is no. La'ah. You know, so that's a disciplinary um, method to our culture. You know, that if we do it and we practice, rehearse enough, we won't have to get whipped, you know. But of course, this is, relating to Joseph Jackson himself. They got into Hollywood. His children got into Hollywood, and all that mishap and that surgery and that whatever. I believe that's Hollywood. But when they see freedom, if you see freedom on stage or freedom with entertainment or freedom with your desires opposed to somebody telling you what to do and how to do it, then you're going to look for that freedom. And you're going to look at what opposes it is the enemy. And that's not always the case. It's a father figure element to everything. It should be. So a lot of these, an example for women too, they'll tell you that you acting like their father if you try, instruct them on how to, how to spend their money and or how to, take care of the house or whatever, So, because they have desires, they have physical desires to make money and live in a big house and dream well. So, even with GMS, a lot of them look at GMS like that. And, and GMS has been a father figure to me. So, but a lot of the rough military and taking instructions I'm used to because I grew up like that. So, a lot of fathers, especially these days now, they don't have that. So you could be easily triggered or become emotional. And I'm not saying that's the worst thing, but, it can hurt you in the long run, I saw this one kid just yesterday in a store. He was like maybe 2.5, 3, and he was walking and he stopped and his mother kept walking and she looked back and she's like, come on, come on. And he wouldn't come. So she's like, what do you want? What do you want? Went back to him and, you want to be picked up? And she said, he just didn't say nothing, but, she picked him up. But back then, that mother would have been like, come on, bring your ass. Or not even, some mothers didn't cuss, but you better come on. Act like you don't got no legs. You better walk. And if you cry, they'll whip your ass, Today they feel sorry for, but if you cry back then, they'll whip your ass for crying. So, and it's not a boasting thing that like the generation has gotten worse because of that, because they took the fathers into disciplinary at a home. So that it does has a factor element to it, but not that just because you come from the later generation that you're worse off. Because Most High can call anybody out, and you still got, you know, men that have came up under young men with that same nature of discipline, because they may have went to the military, or it was hard on them and they figured some shit out early, and they had children early, and they raised them up under that same banner. So, that's here to there. But, overall, the generation, me speaking personally as a man, I believe it's gotten worse because of that. And that's a tactic of the devil. Proverbs 13:24, the most famous verse reads, "He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes," man. So, Edomites don't really get disciplined. That time out, that's what type of discipline they get, time out. And, we get our ass whooped. You can get your ass whooped three times in a day. By your teacher, when you get home, by your mother, and by your father, or your auntie, whoever gets to you and shit. And you get beat in front of the kids and other kids. And you might have to, you go out and buy your own, get your own switch. Or if your mother's that mad, or your father's that mad, they might pick up a extension cord or a pot and throw it at you. But, and I used to get whipped with the leather belts. But a lot of brothers did too. A lot of us did too, especially coming from that era. But he that loveth his son, Sirach 30:1, he that loveth his son causes him oft to feel the rod, that he may have joy of him in the end. In Proverbs 23, these are all beaten scriptures. Advise, thou shalt beat him with the rod and shalt deliver his soul from hell, man. Now remember, they had one picture, and my pops had an afro too, but like I said, and he might have had his own austere look, but he didn't look at as austere as Joseph. But his authoritative voice was there. He called me, "Hey, like, oh, shit." And that's just that ain't even when I'm in trouble. It's just regular. But, everybody goes through their own situation in their own household. I don't really think it's that healthy now because of the times have changed, and I think it's more talk and more discipline that way. But I do believe that should still be a thing in the household. But you have to give knowledge and wisdom and understanding with it, so your child won't be confused and think you hate him. And Psalms 23:4 uses the rod and staff as a comforting tool of a caring shepherd. It even tells you that it says, Revelation 2:27, pictures of Yahweh Shai ruling the nations with a rod of iron. We're gonna rule the nations. We're gonna be beating their ass, like like you would do a child. But they're gonna get it worse first. And then they're going to be disciplined with the laws. If you break them, you the consequences. So this is a disciplinary training course of us being in this truth, to understand discipline. That's what disciple comes from. Discipline. In order to know how to live better, live right, and if you want the nations, because it says, "As for me, I'll give the nations for your inheritance," You got to know how to treat the nations. Esau doesn't know how to do that. And he allows all kind of BS among his own, among the nations, and among the cities and all that. And it destroys people. You know, if you allow your daughter to be, you allow her to be destroyed. You could destroy. You could, so to speak. I would say psychologically, mentally destroy a spirit, but that spirit can be built back up. It can heal, of course, and psychological damage may still be there, but the Most High's word, it'll heal you all the way. Most High said he heals and he wounds. So it can make you whole, because you'll forget, you'll just, you won't be emotional about stuff that happened to you back then that you felt like, why that was wrong. You starting as a new man, and you're a better man. You become a better man. So you got a lot of kids and children thinking about what their parents did way back then, how they whipped them, or how they divorced. Why'd y'all divorce? We never could be a family, and the mother cussing at the father for what happened 20, 30 years ago and shit. Like, that shit is old, man. Most I said we're new creatures. So, even between the Latin Negro tribes, you got them, that old beef. Oh yeah, man. Them hating each other for things that happened in the past. It's still happening sometime. Well, yeah, a lot of stuff is still happening in a lot of ways. That don't mean you had to feed into it. So, and I don't know. I never felt like I had to forgive my father, because I really never felt, it bothered. It used to bother me when I was young, but I realized that a lot of that was, maybe needed, or that was because I was young, and he was young too. A lot of our fathers were young back then. I think my father had me at 20, but he had his first child, which my sister, at 16. So, but I like I said, the more children in the household, it could become strenuous, and it could, your father could be a little more edgy, more militant, but I don't know, communication is a key factor. We always tell you that from GMS. It's a key factor, communication, understanding of what's been done and what's, like I said, if you just whip your child for nothing and always whipping them, getting at them, and always on them, and and for no reason, and especially with no communication of and no knowledge of wisdom, understanding, you're gonna break them, And if he broken, he can go either way. He can turn into a sodomite or something. He could turn into drugs or something. He could turn into, so you're not supposed to do that. But and the most of all, we got our Father in heaven, man. He's a true Father of all. He's a true Father of spirits. He's a true Father that sent his Son, express image, to love us. And even going back to Joseph, he, that's the only thing they pin on him pretty much, is he was hard. He was an abuser. He wasn't on drugs. He wasn't a drunk. He probably had a couple of ladies, and besides Catherine, so what? But this place is not not prone to discipline. They're not acceptable to, to the instructions and all that. And that's one of the main things that that the Most High has told us all through history. To do what He says do. And the reason why our curses came upon us. So, I don't want to make this too long. But yeah, I just told you a little bit about my pops. It's kind of like a small testimony, example of, that's how it was on a lot of homes with black families. It was when the father was in the house, it was discipline. I mean, you seen the old show Good Times with James, that played James Amos, that played actually James on the TV as a TV character. He was still whipping his kids. He was whipping JJ. JJ was taller than he was. Fell, but he was taller than he was. He was still whipping his ass. And all of them. Thelma was, I don't know, he was kind of more light on her, I think. I don't know if he ever whipped her or about to whip her, but the females got their ass whipped back then too, man. And they would be more emotional, so they'll move out by time 16 or something, like, But the boys stay around at least, to 18 or even a little bit longer. But anyway, I think that's it. But yeah, we need, a lot of them need that Joe Jackson kit in their homes. America's gotten soft ass. America says, what did it say? Hard head make a soft ass, meaning you get your ass whipped. But that's where the Edomites, they never got disciplined. That's why they running out here wild. They'll call you, they might call you nigger or with no understanding, come up and be angry and emotional with no understanding, because they trying to understand why there's discipline, why what's this gathering about, why y'all, forming and talking about, people need to get right. All them damn false ass Christians out there, man. Demon ass Christians. Why y'all, Jesus loved everybody. So that means there's no discipline. That means there's no recompense for anything you do. That's why America is so fucked up. And this place is going to hell in a handbag. Hell with fiery hell, with judgment. We know what that is. Because the wars have started. And the main war is coming. Anyway, shalom.